This is my interdisciplinary project discussing freshwater and freshwater solutions in Texas for Dr. Timothy Parker, Texas Tech University. I would like to add, since the making of this, there has been relief in the moisture content in Texas, thankfully. But the current state of freshwater in Texas is facing an increasingly serious problem. With a rapid growing population, the amount of water used will increase the great usage, but the amount of available water is not going to increase anytime soon. In addition, chances are it will increase quicker than expected. This is probably because of overuse, lack of reuse and recycling, pollution, drought, and growing population. The two critical factors to help this problem include both financial and community support, as well as knowledge of the intake, reuse, and availability of water in the state. Another great way to get people involved and educated about the subject is to make sure your water provider is deeply planning for the future of your community's water. Most Texas water utilities are required to create documents that will detail how they will conserve water in the communities, such as building of lakes and underwater reservoirs that will be constructed. It is important for the citizens of Texas to do their part and help organize dedicated to saving supply of fresh water. This paper will use the broad model to discuss and address questions. What are some of the issues related to fresh water, and what can be done to reuse, recycle, or influence the use of water? The two disciplines that I will be using in this paper are history and community support. These things will heavily contribute to efforts being made to change the ongoing problems with freshwater in Texas. According to an article in Freshwater Biology, I stated, assessing impacts and threats directly informs conservation strategies, management options, and priorities for action. This is directly linked to interdisciplinary research by understanding that the issue is caused by many problems, and more people that use their perspective to research the problem, the more likely we'll be able to find a solution. Lastly, it is important to understand the severity of the issue in freshwater. In an article titled Prospects for Biodiversity, the author states, there is growing evidence that freshwater biodiversity is now among the most endangered in the world. The only way to deal with the issue of this magnitude is to combine multiple perspectives and disciplines in search for a solution. The two disciplines will be used together to help determine the best solution or steps to take in order to limit effects of the issue. Furthermore, the problem that Texas is facing is the potential lack of majority fresh water due to state's overuse, high population, and missing conservation of the resource. An article about freshwater in Texas author states, Texas has developed extensive optimization techniques to address its quite limited water resources. It is evident that there are people in the state that are doing their part in order to help address these issues. There are people from all different disciplines with different backgrounds and experiences come together to talk about what their solution is. The research question is, fresh water is critical to sustain life and an important resource, yet experts agree that conservation efforts are inadequate. Again, from the perspective of two of your disciplines, what are some of the issues related to fresh water, and what can be done to reuse, recycle, or influence the abundant use of water? The research used for this project include Texas history of freshwater and the decline of the growing population, and organizations who are extremely dedicated to turning it around. After reading the article, the impacts of water conservation strategies on water use, 4 case study. They looked at 4 different strategies for water conservation and stated, a second approach to non-price water conservation research involves a retrospective analysis of previous water use, behavior using available data. The discipline that will be used for this research is history, because it is important to look back at the historical data to provide future behavior. There is no better predictor of future behavior than past behavior, and the only way to change behavior is to better understand why past behaviors of the source of Texas freshwater is the best way to predict the future of it by estimating the way people use these resources. The factor considered, the freshwater issues in Texas have many possible insights that may or could be viewed to have resolved these problems. but only with the support and cooperation of Texas and the Texas population, and other interdisciplinary researchers. This topic is very important because if the people of Texas do not pay attention to do their part to conserve their water and protect its sources, it will quickly run out, and when their overpopulation grows. The abundance of factors that contribute to this problem and the plans to help fix it come into fruition again. The issue for fresh water availability and necessary resources is particularly true in the southwestern United States, such as Texas, where water resources are already over-allocated. The places of all freshwater sources in Texas, the population of Texas, the amount of recycling efforts, the moral responsibilities on recycling and reuse of the water, the weather, which includes the drought, the history of the amount of water and its decline, the pollution around these freshwater sources, and the financial or community support of attempt to save the freshwater are all contributing factors and relevant disciplines. They all have a significant role, but the history of freshwater in Texas and the community's financial support and cooperation will provide the most information and give the best results. In terms of community support, the critical characteristic of a resilient city is that the city has the capacity to intentionally change and enhance its ability to adapt. The best way for population to help support this cause is to learn and adapt when the things are not normal or you are having to preserve more than usual. There are many people within the community trying to piece together their own solutions and make decisions regarding what happens to resolve the issue. According to Kimmer, the nature of these decisions makes them amenable to using adaptive management, using the results of ongoing monitoring and assessment to modify and optimize the operation of decisions. There are many things of the population control, such as natural disasters. One natural disaster that is not always thought of is drought. According to the article in the Journal of Planning Literature, drought lacks immediate impact of a major hurricane or flood. Its slow onset and lack of universal definition makes drought a unique hazard. Droughts are not always considered when talking about natural disasters because of the slow decline, but it can be seen as a natural disaster that has some of the most profound after effects. This is a main reason that financial support and cooperation of the community is one of the disciplines discussed in this paper. To make a true difference, the organizations attempting to save the freshwater in Texas desperately need financial support, whether it comes from citizens, organizations, or the government. They also need people of Texas to do more part by recycling, reusing, and conserving water to the best of their abilities. But one thing that is critical to the success of these operations is knowledge. The knowledge of the past and the other factors that influence the ability of freshwater history. From the last topic of history, if the community was given the same information and began to reuse the water, then they can also impact the future of freshwater in Texas. Another option for people that want to be a part of the cause is to donate to the organizations working so hard to save the resources of freshwater. Even if some citizens cannot afford to donate, they can encourage others to donate, volunteer their time, petition the government to join the cause more, or hold fundraisers. Community support and cooperation can make a huge difference if enough people join the cause. The conflict between these two insights is not all in language, but is all implied in the result. This means that for the second insight to be successful, it has to use the first. Community and financial support cannot come without knowledge of the cause for its importance. The vocabulary used to describe both are first about information, then about action, which is why this is the result of conflict difficult to detect. The ability of these two disciplines to work together to help come up with solutions for a problem that is vital to the success of the state as a whole is crucial. The community as a whole need to use the resources provided and historical data to make informed decisions about what they can do to help their part. A resilient community possesses available resources and the ability to recognize them to maintain function. Resilience is a key word that defines exactly what the community needs to show off such adversity. The ability to come together to make a difference no matter what outside forces are coming at you is how the community can show that they are able to make change. There are things that the government can do to allow the community the opportunity to show change, but there is just much community can do to advocate for what needs to happen. In an article titled Obstacles to Interdisciplinary Research, the article states, interdisciplinary research can be hindered by differing expectations about publishing within a research team. With the two disciplines being different, it is important to note that the expectations for the study may be different from both sides. This can cause conflict between the two disciplines unintentionally. The interdisciplinary approach has showed a compelling argument for these two disciplines to come together to provide viable solutions for the problem. It may not ultimately solve it, but it will hopefully bring it to the right direction. After reviewing the data and the sources that were found after researching, that is evident that this is a huge major issue and requires many different areas of expertise in order to even begin to combat the situation. It is easy to see how multiple disciplines come together can cause conflict because of the many different variables that are encountered through each discipline. While the solution for one of the disciplines may produce a positive outcome, it may have adverse effects for the other disciplines. Attempts at redemption. There is no simple conclusion, and there will never be a straightforward solution to the problem. But that is what makes it an interdisciplinary or wicked problem. Freshwater issues will continue to be a problem for Texas and other areas of the country, but there are things that the community can do to improve the problem and prolong it from affecting the community.